Divide your mind's eye like a split screen. On the left, picture a single bacterium. On the right, a fertilized egg. The bacterium grows and multiplies and are kin to each other, all joined to the original microbe by bonds of heredity. They are inheriting copies of the mother's chromosome. The fertilized egg does the same thing, and the developing embryo cells share heredity as well. As time passes, the bacteria divide and grow. They turn into a jumbled colony of identical cells. On the other hand, an egg's descendants can divide but return to a human body with a head, a body, with arms and legs. When an embryo divides down the line, each cell can turn to a new cell that makes up different types of organs and tissues, where scientists nowadays are ridiculing textbooks that say humans only have 200 different types of cells. Thus, this chapter poses and attempts to answer the following question from Aristotle himself. How does a cell with a single set of genes give rise to the complexity of the human body? Aristotle tried to answer this question by cracking open some eggs. He cracked eggs open every day, and on the fourth day he noticed a red dot and said this was the chick's heart. He said, "This point beats and moves as though endowed with life." A few more cracks later, he could see the head and the eyes, which were similar to the embryos of other animals. But as time went on, the similarities disappeared, and they were overtaken by the features of a bird, like having a beak, a feather, claws, and wings. Then there were people who were preformationists that believed all anatomy of an animal existed before conception and that a miniature human was inside the sperm. But by now we all know that that's not the case. Then a scientist named William Harvard, who agreed with Aristotle, said it was from eggs that all animals grew. Does this mean that the egg came before the chicken? Well, anyways, this is where the chapter title got its name, Ex Ovo Omnia. But then, a German zoologist said that the universal principle of development for the elementary parts of an organism, and the principle is in the formation of the eggs. Thus, ex ovo omnia became omnis cellula et cellula, which means every cell comes from a cell, stating that it inherits its traits from its ancestors. Later on, August Weismann stated, development of an embryo is a saga of laws. He surmised after studying embryos as well that when a fertilized egg divides, it bequeaths its nucleus to its offspring. Inside the nucleus are hereditary tendencies that cells tend to lose, like those in the stomach who have no other option but to divide into other stomach cells because organs lose the original hereditary tendencies from the embryo. From this, he came up with germline cells and somatic cells, and then reasoned that eggs and sperms had to develop early and separate from other cells because they needed to maintain their hereditary tendencies in order to be able to form a human. A solution to understand how a cell differentiates, Conrad Reddington then developed the idea that development is brought about through a series of cause interactions between various parts. This means that when a cell divides, the daughter cells will go through an epigenetic landscape which causes the dividing cells to go through interactions with different molecules that would ultimately define its role. It was all thanks to Mary Leon, who will become a pioneer in hereditary mutations, specifically DNA mutations caused by radiation. She looked at mutations in X and Y sex chromosomes. She noticed that in one of her mice, female mice had molted and developed spots. The male progeny of this mouse either died or had no symptoms. The female mice were all able to live, but some had molted skin. The mode of inheritance of this disease should sound familiar, right, class? So the question came up, how can female mice survive with two X chromosomes and not go through a deadly chaos of overproduction of proteins when males only have one X chromosome? The answer to this is that the chromosome gets silenced by a specific gene, but that X chromosome still gets passed down to their daughter cells. This concludes how the compilation of different geniuses were able to understand hereditary and how one cell is able to differentiate and develop the human body.